Chapter 7, Diversity in Living Organism. Have you ever thought of a multitude of a life form that surround us? Okay, there is a lot of multicellular as well as multiple form of organism are present surrounding us, okay, or around us. Each organism is different from all other to the lesser or greater extent, okay, and all the organism are what, okay, all of them are different from each other, okay, whether it have a lesser extent or a greater extent, okay, depending on their body structure, okay. So here we can see that there is a lot of multiple form of organism present around us or surrounding us, okay. So for that, for instance, consider yourself and a friend. Are you both of the same height? Okay, if we compare ourselves, okay, with our friend, okay, we can able to distinguish that there is a lot of difference between us and our friend, okay, in the basis of a skin color as well as many other things, okay. For example, height, okay, height are also not same, okay, with our friend. Does your nose look exactly like your friend's nose? Okay, no, okay, our friend's nose are totally different from our nose. Same way, is your hand span the same as your friend? No, not at all, okay. So from that only we can see that there is a lot of distinguish or difference between us and our friend, okay. So from that we can say that there is a lot of different and multiple form of organism present in our surrounding, and all of them have a different characteristic, okay, and body structure which are totally different from us. However, if we were to compare ourselves and our friend with a monkey, okay, if we compare it with whom, okay, with a monkey, what will we say? Obviously, we and our friend have a lot of common when we compare ourselves with a monkey. Okay, when we are comparing us with a monkey, there is a lot of similarity, okay, with a monkey. But suppose we were to add a cow to our comparison, but if we compare us with a cow, okay, we would then think that the monkey has a lot more in common with us than with a cow, okay. If we compare first we have compared us with a monkey, okay. In that we can see there is a lot of common characteristic with a monkey. But if we compare us with a cow, then we can see that a common characteristic between us and cow are very less, okay. So in this activity we have to decide which characteristic were more important in forming the desired category, okay. On the characteristic, okay, on the basis of the characteristic, okay, group will be divided, okay, and depending on that group we can say that a different type of category are formed. Hence we were also deciding which characteristic could be ignored, okay, which of the characteristics should be ignored, okay, that also we will study. So basis on that, okay, many organisms are categorized, okay, in a different category. Now think of all the different form in while life occur on earth, okay. On one hand, we have a microscopic bacteria. Okay, if we talk about that, okay, microscopic bacteria, that is also one of the organism of a few micrometer in a size. Okay, which are what? Okay, it have a size very small in a micro. Okay, in a micrometer, its size is in a micrometer. So, if we consider that bacteria that is so much small compared to different organisms which are present in environment. So, from that also we can distinguish a different organism. If we talk about one organism which is of a bacteria, okay, bacterial organism, and second one if we talk about animal, okay, that is also one of the organism. In animal also there is a lot of category, Okay, but commonly we are taking just a animal as one of the organism and bacteria as another organism. From that also we can distinguish that bacteria, okay, which have a size very small in a micro, but animal which have a size very high. Okay, so if we compare both the organism, then also we can distinguish that there is a lot of difference between organism which are present in an environment. Okay, some of them contain size less, some of them have a greater size as compared to the first one. Okay, so from that basis also we can distinguish a different organism. While on the other hand we have a blue whale, okay, and a redwood tree of a California of approximately size of a 30 meter and 100 meter respectively. Okay, if we talk about the blue whale and a redwood tree of a California, okay, both of them, okay, first which is a blue whale which contain a 30 meter, while a redwood tree which have a 100 meter respectively. Okay, so these both, okay, these two also we can see that there is a lot of difference in its size and in length. Okay, so some pine trees live for 1,000 of years. Okay, if we talk about the pine trees, some of the pine trees are living for 1,000 of years, while insects like a mosquito die within a few days. Okay, so on the basis of that also we can distinguish, okay, a organism, okay, which have a different characteristic by its own and features, and special features are there basis on their organism. Basis on the organism, there is a different feature of every organism. So here we have compared which two, okay, pine tree, okay, which are living for the thousands of years, whereas insect which is also one of the organism, and pine tree which was also one of the organism. So if we compare both the pine tree as well as insects, okay, from that also we can distinguish that pine tree which are living for the thousands of years, while if we talk about the insects which are living very few days. Okay, so on the basis of that also we can distinguish that different organisms have different characteristics. Okay, so life also ranges from the colorless or even transparent worms to brightly colored bird and flower. Okay, there is a lot of organisms, okay, which have a colorless, okay, which do not have any color, but there is a lot of other birds as well as flower which contain a very nice and beautiful colors. Okay, this bewildering variety of a life around us has evolved on the earth over millions of years. Okay, from the millions of years it was evolving, okay, by its own only. However, we do not have a more than a tiny fraction of this time to try and understand all these living organism. Okay, so we do not have so much of time, so we cannot look at them one by one. Okay, we don't have a lot of time to study it in a detail. Okay, so we will take a few of them. Okay, depend on that we will study different type of organism, okay, on the basis of a classification as well as category. Okay, instead we look for the similarity among the organism. Okay, we will see only what the similarity of an organism only, which will allow us to put them into a different class. Okay, on basis of which we will categorize or we will put them in a different classes or a different category. Okay, depending on their characteristic and similarity, and then study different classes or group as a whole. Okay, and then categorizing that organism, we will study that category in detail. Okay, so we will classify a different organism on the basis of its similarity as well as its category, okay, into a group or a classes. Now, in order to make a relevant group to study the variety of life forms, we need to decide which characteristic decide more fundamental difference among organisms. This will create the main broad group of an organism. Okay. Which of the category or the fundamental difference will form which category? Okay. So we will take one characteristic of a organism, and depending on that category, we will divide them into a different classes and groups. Within this group, okay, small subgroup will be decided. Okay, first we will form a one group. Okay, that group is divided into what? Okay, multiple group or a subgroup. A single group will divide it into a subgroup. Okay, will be decided by the less important characteristic. Okay, so how it will form? Okay, once again I am repeating how it is there. Okay, first we will take a common characteristic or a big characteristic which are common in all the organism. Okay, so that characteristic will be the main chain, or we say it as a main group. Okay, from that group lesser characteristic are divided into a subgroup. Okay, so here the basis of classification. Okay, how it is divided? Okay, that we will study. What is the basis of classification? Classification basis. Attempt at a classifying living things into a group have been made since time immemorial. Okay, Greek thinker Aristotle classified animal according to whether they live on land, in water or in the air. Okay, first they have categorized or grouped, okay, on the basis of a characteristic that whether a animal is living in land, water or in a air. Okay, depending on that, first category has formed or the first group is formed. This is a very simple way of looking at life. Okay, whether an animal is living in land, water or in a air. Depending on that, okay, it is classified. First group is made. This is a very simple way of looking at life, but misleading too. Okay, this is one of the misleading thing also. For example, animal that live in the sea includes coral, whales, octopus, starfish and shark. We can immediately see that these are very different from each other in numerous ways. Okay, if we compare, okay, that whales and octopus, okay, both of them have a lot of dissimilarity. They do not contain a similar characteristic. Okay, lot of similar characteristic. Okay, if it possible, a single or two, okay, one or two similarity can be possible, but in numerous means number of difference are there between whales and octopus. Okay, so we cannot able to classify it. Okay, in fact their habitat is the only point they share in common. Okay, only habitat is the only common point, okay, which are sharing in common. Okay, that both of them are living in a water. Okay, that is only a single characteristic. Okay, so this can able to misleading us. Okay, why? Because both of them are living in water but do not have a lot of similar characteristic. There is only single characteristic, which is what? Okay, both of them are living in water. Okay, so this is no good as way of making group of organism to study thing about. Okay, so this category, okay, is not good. So we therefore need to decide which characteristic to be used as the basis for making the broadest division. Okay, now second question arises that now how we will categorize a different organism. Okay, so second question arises. then we will have to pick the next set of characteristic for making subgroup within this division. Okay, this process of classification within each group can then continue using a new characteristic each time. Okay, so one group we have formed. Okay, what on depending on their living in water, air, or land. Okay, whether it is living in water. Okay, we say it as a aquatic, etc., etc. Okay, so first that is the first group. Okay, now in that aquatic there is lot of subgroup also. Okay, that will be distinguished or divided on the basis of their characteristic. Okay, whether they have containing common characteristics, they will place in the first subgroup. Okay, second one which have little bit of difference. Okay, that are categorized in the second subgroup. Okay, this way a group is divided into lot of subgroup. Okay, that is only there. Before we go on, we need to think about what is meant by characteristic. Okay, now we are just using a word characteristic, but what is the meaning of characteristic? Okay, so first we have to study that. When we are trying to classify a diverse group of organisms, we need to find a way in which some of them are similar enough to be thought of together. Okay, now when we are dividing a group, okay, at that time we have to distinguish them by its similarity. Okay, and the similarity should be enough that they should form into a particular group. Okay, what is characteristic? Okay, a common similarity are there between two organisms. Okay, so or a characteristic. A characteristic is the one of the thing. Okay, they are containing by its own. Okay, so this way in fact are detail of appearance or behavior. Okay, how they are looking, that is also one of the characteristic, and how they are behaving, that is also one of the characteristic. Okay, so depending on that, okay, we can able to distinguish them. Okay, so that is the one of the meaning of characteristic. Okay, its own behavior or its own appearance. Okay, how they are appearing, that is also one of the characteristic, and how they are behaving, that is also one of the characteristic. Okay, so in other word, form and function. Okay, how they are functioning, that is also one of the characteristic. Okay, so characteristic is nothing but enough amount of behavior, appearance, or similarity. Okay, which are distinguish them from a other organism. Now, what we mean by the characteristic is a particular form or a particular function. Okay, how they are and how they are functioning, that is also one of the characteristic function. That most of us have a five finger. Okay, now one of the characteristic we are seeing five finger in each hand is thus a characteristic. Okay, that is also one of the characteristic. Okay, now whichever organism, okay, those organism which are having a five finger, that are categorized, okay, in a one group, okay, in which we are there because we are having five finger. Okay, so those organisms which are having five finger, that will be categorized or put in our group. Okay, whichever group we are there, in that group that organism will be placed. So that is also one of the characteristic, that we are having a five finger. Okay, that is our one characteristic. That we can run, but the banyan tree cannot, is also a characteristic, that we can able to move. Okay, and run, but if we talk about the banyan tree, okay, they cannot able to run or walk or move. Okay, so that is our characteristic, that we can able to move. Okay, now to understand how some characteristics are decided as being more fundamental than other, let us consider how a stone wall is built. Okay, now first we will study how the stone wall is built. Okay, depending on that example. The stone used will have different shape and size. Okay, stone which we are using have a different shape and size. Okay, all the stone do not contain a similar size. If we have shaped, then they are containing same size. Okay, but we have taken roughly stone. Okay, we have taken roughly stone, then all of them contain a different size. Okay, all of them contain different sizes. The stone at the top of the wall will not influence the choice of a stone that come below them. On the other hand, the shape and the size of a stone in the lowermost layer will decide the shape and the size of the next layer, and so on. Okay, so the shape and the size are decided by whom? Okay, a stone which are placed lowermost. Okay, depending on that we can judge. Okay, if we have placed a larger stone or a huge stone, okay, then we can able to place a little, okay, small stone. Two or three small stone can be placed upon that larger one. So lowermost layer will decide that how the shape will be there. Okay, depending on that lowermost layer of stone, we can judge that which type of stone will be placed upon them. Okay, if we have placed small stone, okay, in the lowermost, then obvious, okay, we have to place a small stone on it, okay, which are very small or less small as compared to the lowermost. So lowermost stone or lowermost layer will decide that the shape of a particular thing will be of how much. Okay, so the stone is the lowermost layer are like a characteristic that decide the broadest division among living organisms. Okay, so the stone which we have placed lowermost layer, okay, that is also one of the characteristic. Okay, we are considering them as a characteristic, so which are deciding that on which division it will be placed. Okay, the organism which we are thinking, they are independent of any other characteristic in their effect on the form and their function of an organism. Okay, all the organism are independent, okay, and have a different characteristic, but on the basis of that characteristic which are common with the other, they are placed in that group. The characteristic in the next level will be dependent on the previous one and will decide the variety in the next level. Okay, so this way whole characteristic will be depend, and depending on that group will be formed. And this way we can build a whole hierarchy of a mutually related characteristic to be used for classification. This way a huge chain will be formed. Okay, one group will be there, on that group there will be a lot of subgroup. Okay, and the whole chain will be formed on the basis of their characteristic, and it will be classified. Nowadays we look at many interrelated characteristics starting from the nature of a cell in order to classify all living organisms. What are some concrete examples of such characteristics used for the hierarchical classification? Okay. A eukaryotic cell has a membrane bound organelle including a nucleus which allows cellular process to be carried out efficiently in the isolated from the each other. Okay, so we know it well that eukaryotic cell, okay, has the membrane bound organelle. Therefore organisms which do not have a clearly demarcated nucleus or other organelle would need to have their biochemical pathway organism in very different way, and this have a effect on every aspect of a cell design. Okay, depending on that cell design will be formed, and this way one group can be formed that a organism which contain eukaryotic cell have will be placed in one group. Okay, so depending on that also we can classify a different group. Further, nucleate cell will have a capacity to participate in making a multicellular organism because they can take a specialized function. Therefore, this is the basic characteristic of classification. Okay, so on basis of this characteristic, what? Okay, containing eukaryotic cell and the functioning of that eukaryotic cell which are seen in the organism. Okay, so that organism can be placed and said that having a common characteristic, and they will classify on the group. Okay, so this way one group can be formed on the basis of containing eukaryotic cell as well as having a functioning of a eukaryotic cell. So, do the cell occur singly or they are grouped together? And do they live as an indivisible group cell that group together to form a single organism? Use the principle of division of labor. In such a body design, all cells will not be identical. Okay, all of them are not identical. Okay, but they are working with each other. And all cells would not be identical. Instead, group of the cell will carry out specialized function. Okay, group of the cell, okay, cell which are working with each other. Okay, they will form a group, and that group of cell will work with each other and have a specialized function. Okay, group of cell will perform a specialized function, and this make a very basic distinction in the body design of organism. As a result, amoeba and worm are very different in their body structure. In this way, you can see that two organism, amoeba and worm, okay, having a different body design. Okay, if we compare it. Now, do organisms produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis? Okay, so that is also one of the characteristics we can place. Being able to produce one's own food versus having to get food from the outside. Okay, so these are saying that only autotrophic or heterotrophic. Okay, so that is also one of the classification or a group. Okay, organism which contain autotrophic nutrition are placed in that group, and organism which are containing a heterotrophic are placed in second group. Okay, so this way also classification can be made or group can be made. Okay, so of the organism that perform photosynthesis, which we say it as a plant, what is the labor of organism of their body? Of the animal, how does the individual body develop or organize its different part, and what are the specialized organ found for the different function? Okay, now animal also subdivided. We can see that even in these few questions that we have asked, heresy is developed. The characteristic of a body design used for the classification of plant will be very different from those important for classification of animal. Okay. Animal are classified in sub many way. This is because of the basic design are different. Okay, basic design are different from each other, and based on their need to make their own food, which is it as a plant, and acquire it like a animal. Okay, so one is autotrophic, second one is heterotrophic. Now, therefore, this design feature having a skeleton or, for example, okay, whether they are containing skeleton, depending on that also it is classified, are to be used to make a subgroup. Okay, so for making subgroup, okay, whether our organism contains skeleton, that is also one of the important characteristic, rather than making a broad group.
Of classification. Animal kingdom is classified based on the body symmetry, arrangement of cells, germinal layer, nature of coelom, segmentation and presence of notochord. The nature of coelom, segmentation and presence of notochord are explained briefly in this section. Levels of organization. All members of Animalia are multicellular but exhibit different levels of organization. 1. Cellular level. In unicellular animals and some multicellular animals, the cell is responsible for all the metabolic activities in the animal body. This type of organization of function is termed as cellular level of organization. 2. Tissue level. In certain animals, cells performing the same function are arranged in a group. Example, coelentrates. 3. Organ level. Some animals form specialized organs for specific functions. Example, platyhelminthes. 4. Organ system level. In higher and complex animals, various organs group to form a complex organ system to perform specific function. Example, mollusk, chordata. Symmetry. Planes passing through the body, dividing it into equal halves. Animals can be categorized on the basis of their symmetry. Sponges are mostly asymmetrical. That is, any plane that passes through the center does not divide them into equal halves. Radial symmetry. When any plane passing through the central axis of the body divides the organism into two identical halves, it is called radial symmetry. Coelentrates, ctenophores, and echinoderms have this kind of body plan, bilateral symmetry. Animals like annelids, arthropods, etc., where the body can be divided into identical left and right halves in only one plane, exhibit bilateral symmetry. Diploblastic and triploblastic organization. Animals in which the cells are arranged in two embryonic layers, an external ectoderm and an internal endoderm, are called diploblastic animals. Example, coelentrates. An undifferentiated layer, mesoglia, is present in between the ectoderm and the endoderm. Those animals in which the developing embryo has a third germinal layer